Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the towering crystalline structure that housed the Galactic Council, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched the peace treaty. After 3 years of careful negotiations, humanity was finally ready to join the galactic community. The document represented everything Earth had worked toward since first contact with the Zalari Federation. The council chamber stretched beyond human comprehension, its walls shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that translated thoughts into visible light. Representatives from 47 species filled the vast space, their forms ranging from the graceful bird-like thyrans to the massive silicon-based Korthek. At the center sat the High Arbitrator, an ancient being whose species had founded the Council millennia ago. Humans of Earth, the Arbitrator's voice resonated through universal translators. You have requested membership in our peaceful alliance. Your species shows promise, but concerns have been raised about your violent history. Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Honored Arbitrator, humanity acknowledges our past conflicts. But we have evolved. We've eliminated war from our planet, created global unity, and developed technologies focused on healing rather than harm. We seek only to contribute to galactic peace. A ripple of skeptical murmurs passed through the assembly. The Vorthak representative, a slug-like creature with multiple eye stalks, spoke first. The humans speak of peace, yet their military vessels orbit their world. They carry weapons even now. Sarah touched the ceremonial blade at her side, a tradition dating back to Earth's first ambassadors. This is symbolic only, representing our commitment to defend the innocent. Our ships are equipped for exploration and rescue operations. The crystalline Luxari delegate chimed like breaking glass. Their neural patterns show aggressive tendencies. Our psychic readings detect underlying hostility masked by diplomatic protocol. That's not hostility, Sarah replied calmly. That's determination. Humanity has learned that peace must be earned and protected. We don't seek conflict, but we won't run from it if innocents are threatened. High Arbitrator raised a translucent hand. The human application will be reviewed. However, given the concerns raised, we propose a probationary period. Earth will be granted limited membership with restricted access to galactic technologies and trade routes. Sarah's heart sank, but she maintained her composure. What would be required for full membership? Prove your commitment to nonviolence. Disarm your military. Convert your warships to civilian purposes and demonstrate your species' evolved nature through actions, not words. The human delegation exchanged glances. General Martinez, Earth's military advisor, shook his head slightly. But Sarah knew this was their only chance. We accept these terms. Humanity will prove our peaceful intentions. As the session concluded, Sarah noticed several delegates clustering in corners, their conversations hidden behind privacy fields. Something felt wrong, but she pushed the feeling aside. Earth needed this alliance. 6 months later, Captain James Rodriguez received the distress signal while patrolling the edge of human space in the converted exploration vessel Harmony. The message came from a civilian transport carrying Thyran refugees, under attack by unknown vessels near the Kepler system. Captain, we're 3 hours away, Lieutenant Torres reported. But our orders are clear. No military intervention without Council approval. James stared at the tactical display showing the transport's weakening shields. How long for Council approval? Standard protocol requires 72 hours for emergency authorization. The comm crackled with desperate Thyran voices. Please, anyone who receives this message. We carry 10,000 civilians, including children. Our ship is failing. We need immediate assistance. James closed his eyes, feeling the weight of humanity's promise to the Council. Then he opened them, his jaw set with determination. Torres, plot an intercept course. Maximum speed. Sir, the Council restrictions. The Council can court-martial me later. We're not letting 10,000 innocent beings die while we file paperwork. The Harmony dropped out of hyperspace to find 3 unmarked ships bombarding the Thyran transport. The attackers' vessels bore no identifying marks, but their energy signatures matched those of known pirate fleets that had been raiding the outer systems. Unknown vessels? This is Captain Rodriguez of Earth Vessel Harmony. Cease your attack immediately and withdraw. The lead pirate ship responded with weapons fire. James watched the energy beam streak past his bridge, then turned to his weapons officer. Return fire. Target their engines only. What followed was a textbook rescue operation. The human crew disabled 2 pirate vessels and drove off the third. then immediately began evacuation procedures for the damaged transport. Medical teams worked around the clock to save injured Thyrans, while engineers stabilized their failing ship. As the rescue fleet arrived from Thyran space 3 days later, their commander approached James with tears in his large avian eyes. "Captain Rodriguez, our people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. These civilians would have died without your intervention." "We did what anyone should do," James replied. "The right thing." But when the council learned of the unauthorized military action, their response was swift and harsh. Ambassador Chen found herself once again standing before the High Arbitrator, but this time the atmosphere was decidedly hostile. "The humans have violated their probationary agreement," the Vorthak delegate accused. "They engaged in military action without authorization. This proves their aggressive nature remains unchanged." Sarah felt the weight of 47 species disapproval. "Captain Rodriguez saved 10,000 innocent lives. How can that be considered aggression?" "The method matters more than the outcome," the Luxari chimed. "Violence begets violence. The humans chose force over diplomatic solutions." "What diplomatic solution?" Sarah's voice rose despite her training. "Those people would have died while we waited for permission to save them." The High Arbitrator's expression remained unreadable. "The humans have demonstrated their inability to follow galactic protocols. Their membership is hereby suspended pending a formal review." As Sarah left the chamber, she couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was at play. The pirate attack had been too convenient, too perfectly timed to force humanity into an impossible choice. And the Council's reaction seemed almost pleased. That night, as she sat in her quarters aboard the diplomatic station, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She activated her secure communicator and sent a coded message to Earth. "Begin quiet investigation of recent pirate activity. Something doesn't add up." Little did she know that her suspicions were about to be proven correct in the most devastating way possible. The galaxy's power brokers had decided that humanity's potential for disruption was too great to ignore. The test had been just the beginning. Dr. Elena Vasquez hunched over her workstation aboard the research vessel Newton, analyzing the energy signatures from the pirate attack. As Earth's leading xenotech specialist, she had been quietly investigating the incident for 3 weeks, and what she found chilled her to the bone. "The weapon signatures don't match any known pirate technology," she reported to Admiral Harrison via encrypted channel. "These energy patterns are consistent with Korthek military-grade plasma cannons and Zilari stealth systems." Admiral Harrison's weathered face grew grim on the screen. "You're suggesting Council species were involved in the attack?" "I'm suggesting someone wanted to put us in an impossible situation. Save the civilians and break our agreement, or let them die and prove we're heartless. Either way we lose." The transmission crackled with interference. Elena frowned, checking her encryption protocols. But before she could investigate further, her ship's proximity alarms began screaming. 3 unmarked vessels had appeared out of hyperspace, surrounding the Newton. Elena's hands flew over her controls, sending out distress signals, but her communications were being jammed. "Research vessel Newton, prepare to be boarded," came a cold electronic voice. "Resistance will result in the destruction of your ship." Elena's small crew of 12 researchers and engineers looked to her for guidance. They were scientists, not soldiers. The Newton carried no weapons beyond basic defensive shields. Dr. Vasquez, her assistant Dr. Kim, whispered urgently, "The quantum drive is still charging. We could make a jump," Elena calculated quickly. The drive needed another 40 seconds to reach minimum safe parameters. "Stall them. Send all research data to the emergency beacon. If we don't make it out, at least Earth will know what we found." The attacking ships launched boarding pods. Elena watched them streak toward her vessel like metallic insects seeking prey. 30 seconds to jump capability. The first pod struck the Newton's hull with a metallic clang that echoed through the ship. Cutting tools began burning through the outer airlock. 20 seconds. "Doctor, they're through the outer door," Dr. Kim reported, his voice shaking. 10 seconds. Elena's hand hovered over the jump controls. The inner airlock began to glow cherry red as the cutting tools worked through it. "Jump." Elena slammed her palm down on the control. The Newton vanished into hyperspace just as the boarding party breached the inner airlock. But their escape came at a cost. The hasty jump had damaged their navigation systems, and they emerged in an uninhabited system 3 sectors away from any help. Meanwhile, Aboard the Earth diplomatic station, Ambassador Chen was having her own revelations. A coded message had arrived from an unexpected source, a junior aide in the Thyran delegation. The meeting took place in a maintenance corridor, away from the surveillance systems that monitored official diplomatic channels. The young Theran, whose name translated as Brightfeather, looked nervously around before speaking. Ambassador Chen, there are things about the Council that your people need to know. The attack on our transport was not random. Sarah's suspicions crystallized into certainty. Who ordered it? Not ordered directly, but certain Council members have been meeting in secret. They speak of the human problem and the need for a permanent solution. Which members? Brightfeather's feathers rippled with fear. The Vorthak delegation leads the faction, but they have support from the Luxari and 3 others. They call themselves the Stability Coalition. What do they want? They fear your species' potential for disruption. Humans ask uncomfortable questions, challenge established hierarchies. The Council has maintained peace for 10,000 years through careful control of information and resources. They see your independence as a threat to that order. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. How far are they willing to go? They plan to engineer another incident, something that will justify declaring humanity a hostile species. Once that designation is made, any Council member can attack Earth in the name of galactic security. Before Sarah could ask more questions, Brightfeather's communication device chirped with an urgent message. The young Theran's eyes widened in terror. I've been discovered. Ambassador, you must warn your people. The final phase begins tonight. Brightfeather fled down the corridor, leaving Sarah with the crushing weight of the truth. Humanity had tried to join the galactic community in peace, but the galaxy's power structure couldn't tolerate their very existence. She rushed back to her quarters and sent an emergency transmission to Earth, but her message was intercepted by Council security before it could reach its destination. Within minutes, Korthek enforcers were at her door. Ambassador Chen, you are under arrest for conspiracy against galactic peace. The massive, stone-like being rumbled. You will be held pending formal charges. As they led her away, Sarah saw other human diplomats being arrested throughout the station. The Stability Coalition was moving faster than she had anticipated. On Earth, President Martinez received fragmented reports of the arrests through back-channel communications. The official Council statement claimed that human diplomats had been caught planning terrorist attacks against civilian targets. It's a setup, General Harrison told the emergency cabinet meeting. They're manufacturing a pretext for war. But why? President Martinez asked. We've done everything they asked. We've bent over backward to prove we're peaceful. That's exactly why. Admiral Chen spoke from her position at the Joint Chiefs table. We've shown them that humans can be powerful allies or dangerous enemies. A peaceful humanity that maintains its principles is more threatening to their power structure than a violent humanity they can dismiss as barbaric. Defense. Secretary Williams pulled up holographic displays showing Earth's defensive capabilities. Our military has been reduced by 60% as part of the peace accords. We have perhaps 200 active warships compared to the thousands we had during the colonial expansion period. And the Council knows it, Admiral Chen added grimly. They've been watching our disarmament process, timing their move for when we're most vulnerable. President Martinez stood, his face grave with the weight of the decision he was about to make. Send a message to all our scattered colonies and research stations. Use the old emergency protocols. Tell them to prepare for the worst, but to take no aggressive action until fired upon. Ma'am, General Harrison interrupted. We're receiving a priority transmission from Dr. Vasquez. She's requesting emergency pickup from the Kepler system. She says she has evidence of Council involvement in the pirate attacks. President Martinez nodded grimly. Send the Defiant to retrieve her. And Harrison? Yes, ma'am. Authorize the Defiant's captain to use full discretion if he encounters hostile forces. We're done playing by their rules. As Earth's government scrambled to respond to the crisis, the Stability Coalition was putting their final plan into motion. A massive fleet of peacekeeping vessels was assembling at the edge of human space, ostensibly to contain the terrorist threat that humanity now represented. But they had made a critical miscalculation. In their arrogance, they had assumed that humanity's attempts at peace were signs of weakness. They had forgotten the ancient human saying that had guided their species through countless conflicts. If you want peace, prepare for war. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had been the apex predator on their homeworld, and why their attempts at peace had been an act of mercy, not fear. Captain Lisa Shaw gripped the armrest of her command chair as the Defiant dropped out of hyperspace near Dr. Vasquez's last known position. What they found waiting for them would have broken lesser crews. The research vessel Newton hung dead in space, its hull split open like a broken egg. Debris scattered in a slowly expanding cloud told the story of a ship that had fought desperately before being overwhelmed. Life signs? Shaw asked, her voice tight with controlled emotion. Lieutenant Commander Torres bent over his sensors. I'm picking up weak signals from an emergency pod. Distance 200 kilometers and drifting. Put us alongside. Prepare for emergency medical. And Torres? Yes, Captain? Keep our weapons hot. Whoever did this might still be in the area. The rescue took 20 tense minutes. They pulled 3 survivors from the pod, including Dr. Vasquez, who was barely conscious but clutching a data storage device like her life depended on it. Which, Shaw realized grimly, it probably did. In the medical bay, Dr. Vasquez fought against the sedatives long enough to grab Shaw's arm. Captain, they used council weapons. I have the proof. The Stability Coalition. They're coming for Earth. Shaw studied the data while her medical officer worked to stabilize the survivors. The evidence was overwhelming. Energy signatures, tactical patterns, even communication protocols, all pointed to a coordinated attack by Council species against a civilian research vessel. Captain, we have company, Torres announced from the bridge. 5 vessels dropping out of hyperspace, configuration matches Korthek heavy cruisers. Shaw felt her blood turn to ice. Time to jump? 30 seconds. But Captain, they're jamming our hyperspace coordinates. We can jump, but we'll have no idea where we end up. The lead Korthek vessel opened communications, its captain's rocky features filling the main screen. Human vessel, you are in violation of Council emergency protocols. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Shaw stood slowly, her hand resting on her sidearm. This is Captain Shaw of the Earth vessel Defiant. We are conducting rescue operations in neutral space. By what authority do you detain us? By the authority granted to us by the Galactic Security Resolution. Your species has been designated as a threat to galactic peace. Your vessel and crew are now prisoners of the Council. Shaw exchanged a look with her first officer. The Galactic Security Resolution could only be invoked during active hostilities. The Council was treating Earth as an enemy combatant. Torres, signal the jump, she ordered. We're going home. The Defiant vanished into hyperspace just as the Korthek vessels opened fire. Shaw had chosen a random jump vector, trusting her navigator's skills to get them back to Earth eventually. What she didn't know was that while they fought for their lives in the outer systems, the war had already come to humanity's doorstep. Fleet Admiral Patricia Chen stood on the bridge of Earth's orbital command station, watching the largest alien armada in recorded history assemble at the edge of the solar system. 200 vessels from 17 different species, all flying under the banner of the Galactic Council. Admiral, incoming transmission from the fleet commander, Communications Officer Hendricks reported. The hologram that materialized showed a being Admiral Chen had never seen before, tall, elegant, with silver skin and eyes that seemed to hold the cold depths of space. This was Executor Vale, chosen to lead the coalition forces. Admiral Chen, I am authorized to present the Council's final terms for humanity's surrender. Your species will disarm completely and submit to Council oversight. Your population will be relocated to designated worlds where you can be properly monitored. Resistance will be met with the full force of the galactic community. Admiral Chen stepped forward, her uniform crisp despite the circumstances. Executor Vale, humanity rejects your terms. We have committed no crimes against the galactic community. We demand the immediate release of our diplomatic staff and a full investigation into the attacks on our civilian vessels. Executor Vale's expression didn't change. Your demands are irrelevant. You have 1 standard hour to begin your surrender protocols, or we will commence orbital bombardment of your military installations. The transmission cut, leaving the command center in tense silence. Admiral Chen turned to her staff, seeing the mixture of fear and determination on their faces. Status report. What do we have to work with? General Morrison pulled up the tactical display. We have 47 active warships in system, plus the orbital defense platforms. The Merchant Marine has volunteered to assist, giving us another 30 vessels of varying capabilities. Against 200 Council warships, Admiral Chen mused. Not exactly favorable odds. Admiral, her intelligence officer interrupted. We're receiving coded transmissions from several Council species. It seems not everyone agrees with the Stability Coalition's actions. Explain. The Theran fleet is refusing to participate in the attack. They've withdrawn to the system perimeter and are maintaining neutrality. The Allurians have done the same, and we're getting scattered reports of other species questioning the legality of the operation. Admiral Chen felt a spark of hope. How many ships are we really facing? Best estimate, 160 vessels committed to active combat operations. Still impossible odds, but not quite as impossible. Admiral Chen activated the emergency broadcast system, sending her message to every human vessel, station, and colony in known space. This is Fleet Admiral Chen. As of this moment, humanity is under attack by forces claiming to represent the Galactic Council. We did not choose this war, but we will not submit to genocide. All human vessels are ordered to defend civilian populations at all costs. Remember who we are, remember what we stand for, and show the galaxy why Earth breeds warriors, not just diplomats. On Mars, Colonel David Harrison received the Admiral's message as he watched Council dropships descending toward the main colonial city. The Stability Coalition wasn't just targeting Earth. They were moving against every human settlement simultaneously. All units, this is Colonel Harrison. We are weapons-free. Protect the civilians and make every shot count. The battle for New Shanghai was brief, but vicious. Human Marines, fighting desperately to protect their homes, used every advantage their training had given them. They fought from cover, used the city's infrastructure against the invaders, and proved that humans could be very dangerous when cornered. The Vorthak forces had expected easy victory against a peaceful species. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to break, that turned every street into a fortress and every building into a weapon. As news of the resistance spread throughout Council space, cracks began to appear in the Stability Coalition's unity. Species that had been convinced of humanity's threat began questioning whether orbital bombardment of civilian targets was truly necessary for galactic security. The Ethereal Republic, an ancient species known for their philosophical wisdom, withdrew their support entirely. Their representative's final message to the coalition was broadcast across Council space. We came to contain a threat, but we have become one ourselves. This ends here. But Executor Vale was undeterred. If anything, the resistance only confirmed his belief that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to exist. As the final minutes of his ultimatum ticked away, he prepared to give the order that would either break humanity's spirit or escalate the conflict beyond all reason. On Earth, in hidden bunkers and classified facilities, humanity's true military might was stirring to life. The ships and weapons they had built during their expansion phase, the ones they had promised to decommission, had instead been quietly mothballed. President Martinez had always believed in the old saying, "Trust, but verify." The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's attempt at peace had been a choice, not a weakness. And when that choice was taken away from them, humans could become something far more terrifying than anything the Council had imagined. The first salvo from the Council fleet lit up Earth's night sky like artificial stars. Executor Vale had given the order, and 200 plasma cannons spoke in unison, targeting humanity's orbital defense platforms with surgical precision. Admiral Chen watched from her command station as Platform 7 took a direct hit and exploded in a ball of superheated gas. All stations return fire. Make them pay for every shot. But as Earth's defenses engaged the massive fleet, something unexpected happened. Hidden throughout the solar system, automated systems that had been dormant for 3 years suddenly came online. The first sign was a massive energy spike from the asteroid belt, then another from Jupiter's moons, and another from the far side of Mercury. "Admiral, I'm reading massive power signatures throughout the system," Torres reported, his voice filled with confusion and growing excitement. "It's like the entire solar system just woke up." President Martinez's voice crackled over the emergency channel. Admiral Chen, this is the President. Authorization code Omega-77. You are cleared to activate the Cerberus Protocol. Admiral Chen felt her blood turn cold. The Cerberus Protocol was humanity's ultimate contingency plan, designed during the darkest days of the colonial wars. It had been classified so deeply that only a handful of people knew it existed. Mr. President, are you certain? Once we activate Cerberus, there's no going back. Admiral, they're targeting civilian populations. They've made their choice. Now we make ours. Admiral Chen turned to her tactical officer. Commander, input authorization Omega-77. Activate Cerberus. Throughout the solar system, hidden installations that had masqueraded as mining operations and research stations revealed their true purpose. Massive railguns emerged from asteroid bases. Missile silos opened on hidden lunar facilities. And most terrifyingly, 3 ships that the galaxy thought were deep space exploration vessels suddenly powered up weapons that violated several galactic treaties. The Prometheus, Achilles and Nemesis had been humanity's secret weapons program, disguised as peaceful exploration vessels while actually serving as mobile weapons platforms of unprecedented power. Captain Maria Santos felt the Prometheus shudder as her ship's true nature awakened. The exploration bay opened to reveal a spinal-mounted particle cannon that ran nearly the length of the vessel. The sensor array reconfigured itself into targeting systems, and the scientific equipment transformed into the most advanced warfare suite humanity had ever built. All stations report ready, her tactical officer announced. We have firing solutions on 47 targets. Target the largest vessels first, Captain Santos ordered. Let's even the odds. The Prometheus fired its main weapon for the first time in anger. A stream of accelerated particles moving at 90% the speed of light struck the Korthek dreadnought immutable before its crew even realized they were under attack. The massive ship simply vanished in a flash of converted matter. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as humanity's hidden arsenal revealed itself. Council ships that had expected to face primitive human technology instead found themselves fighting weapons that surpassed their own by generations. Executor Vale watched in growing horror as his fleet began taking casualties at an impossible rate. How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated they had disarmed. His tactical coordinator, a Luxari named Crystal Singer, chimed frantically. Sir, we're detecting weapon signatures that match no known technology. These energy readings are off our scale. Then recalibrate the scale, Vale roared. All ships focus fire on their planet. If we can't defeat their fleet, we'll eliminate their homeworld. But as the Council fleet turned its attention to Earth itself, they found their path blocked by something unprecedented. A wall of kinetic interceptors launched from the asteroid belt created a barrier of metal and explosives around the planet. Any projectile larger than a pebble that approached Earth was systematically destroyed. On the surface, in the deep bunkers beneath Mount Cheyenne, Dr. Elizabeth Warren watched her life's work come to fruition. The Aegis defense grid had taken 15 years to build and install, using automated construction ships that had quietly seeded the solar system with protective systems. Grid efficiency at 97%, her assistant reported. They can't get through, but Dr. Warren knew the grid was only a temporary solution. How long can we maintain this level of defensive fire? At current consumption rates, perhaps 6 hours before we start running low on interceptors. 6 hours to win or lose humanity's survival. On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Shaw had finally managed to navigate back to Earth, only to find the battle in full swing. Her small ship was insignificant compared to the massive vessels trading fire, but she carried something more valuable than any weapon. Communications. Get me a channel to the Thyran fleet, she ordered. Dr. Vasquez's data might just save more than human lives today. The Thyran fleet admiral's response was immediate. Captain Shaw, our people grieve for the loss of your research vessel. What assistance can we provide? Admiral, I'm transmitting evidence of Stability Coalition war crimes. They used Council technology to attack your civilian transport, then framed humanity for aggression. This entire war is built on a lie. The data transfer took precious minutes, but the impact was immediate. The Thyran admiral's expression shifted from sympathy to outrage as he reviewed the evidence. Captain Shaw, we thank you for this truth. It seems we have been manipulated into supporting genocide. Within minutes, the Thyran fleet's status changed from neutral to hostile toward the Stability Coalition. Suddenly, 30 Council warships opened fire on their former allies. The tide of battle was turning, but Executor Vale had one final card to play. Deep in his flagship, he activated a weapon that the Council had sworn never to use again, a planet killer, device left over from an ancient war. If we cannot have a galaxy without humans, he transmitted to his remaining loyal ships, then we will have a galaxy that remembers what happens to those who defy the natural order. On Earth, every sensor in the system screamed warnings as the weapon powered up. Dr. Warren watched her screens with growing horror. Admiral, they're charging a stellar disruptor. If that thing fires, it won't just destroy Earth. The gravitational shock wave will destabilize the entire solar system. Admiral Chen realized that they had moved beyond a conventional war. This was an extinction event in the making. But humanity had one advantage that the Council had never considered. They were willing to take risks that no sane species would contemplate. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Execute Protocol Ragnarok. Authorization code is Broken Arrow 7. Throughout the human fleet, captains received orders that chilled them to their cores. Protocol Ragnarok was humanity's ultimate gambit. Ram attacks by ships configured with experimental hyperspace drives. The explosions would tear holes in space-time itself. Captain Santos looked at her crew, seeing the same resolve in their eyes that had carried humanity to the stars. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor serving with you. Helm, set collision course with the enemy flagship. Engineering, prepare for hyperspace ramming speed. The Prometheus turned toward Executor Vale's massive dreadnought like an arrow seeking its target. Behind her, 2 more human vessels followed suit, their crews making the ultimate sacrifice to prevent genocide. But as the human ships began their final runs, something unexpected happened. The combined Theran and Allurian fleets, joined now by ships from 6 other species, moved to intercept the planet killer weapon. Admiral Brightfather's voice crackled across all channels. This is not how civilized beings wage war. Today we choose to stand with humanity, not because we approve of all their actions, but because we cannot approve of their extinction. The galaxy watched as the largest space battle in 10,000 years reached its climax, with the fate of an entire species hanging in the balance. The Prometheus accelerated toward Executor Vale's flagship, with her hyperspace drive building to critical mass. Captain Santos watched the distance close, 5,000 kilometers, 4,000, 3,000. At this speed, the impact would tear a hole in reality itself. Captain, incoming transmission from the enemy flagship, her communications officer reported. Santos almost ignored it, but something made her hesitate. On screen, Executor Vale's face appeared, no longer cold and controlled, but desperate. Captain Santos, I know you can hear me. Stop this madness. Your ship will destroy both our vessels and everything within 100,000 kilometers. That's the point, Santos replied calmly. You want to commit genocide? Let's see how committed you really are. But before she could complete her ramming run, something extraordinary happened. A massive explosion erupted from within Vale's flagship, and the planet killer weapon went dark. Emergency klaxons wailed across the enemy ship as secondary explosions rippled through its hull. What the hell? Santos demanded, pulling her ship out of its collision course. The answer came in the form of a familiar voice on an emergency channel. This is Ambassador Sarah Chen aboard the flagship Dominion. The weapon has been neutralized. Repeat, the planet killer is offline. Admiral Chen nearly fell out of her command chair. Sarah, how are you alive? How are you on that ship? Sarah's voice carried exhaustion and grim satisfaction. Long story, Patricia. Short version. Brightfeather and I have been very busy prisoners. The Thyran resistance has more friends than anyone realized. What the Stability Coalition hadn't known was that their purge of unreliable elements had created something far more dangerous than human terrorists, a multi-species resistance movement operating within their own ranks for 3 weeks, while humanity fought desperately for survival. Sarah had been working with allies from a dozen species to sabotage the coalition from within. Thyran technicians had introduced subtle flaws into targeting systems. Allurian engineers had programmed backdoors into critical systems. Even some Korthek officers had quietly refused certain orders. The planet killer's destruction was the culmination of their efforts, but it came at a terrible cost. As Executor Vale's flagship began to break apart, the coalition's remaining loyalist vessels turned on their own former allies with the fury of betrayal. The space around Earth became a three-way battle between humanity's defenders, the Stability Coalition remnants, and the growing alliance of species that had chosen to break with their former allies. Captain Rodriguez, who had started this entire crisis by saving Thyran civilians, found his converted exploration vessel Harmony, fighting alongside ships he had never imagined as allies. A Luxari crystal ship provided cover fire while his crew worked to rescue survivors from a damaged Allurian cruiser. "This is surreal," his first officer commented as they watched former council allies working together against their own government. "No," Rodriguez replied. "This is what we always hoped the galaxy could be. It just took a war to get here." The turning point came when the ancient Ethereal Republic made a decision that shocked everyone. The Ethereals were the oldest spacefaring species in the galaxy, so ancient that some believed they predated the current galactic civilization. They rarely involved themselves in younger species conflicts, but as reports of the Stability Coalition's actions reached their hidden fleets, something stirred in the depths of space. The Ethereal High Collective, beings of such advanced evolution that they existed partially outside normal space-time, spoke for the first time in 1,000 years. Their message was transmitted simultaneously to every ship, station, and communication device in the galaxy. "We have observed. We have judged. The Stability Coalition has violated the fundamental principles that govern civilized existence. By the ancient laws that bind all spacefaring species, they are hereby declared enemies of galactic order." The effect was immediate and devastating. Ships throughout Council space began to desert their posts as their crews realized they were fighting for a cause that even the galaxy's eldest species had condemned. The Coalition's authority crumbled in hours, leaving its remaining forces isolated and increasingly desperate. Executor Vale, rescued from his dying flagship by Loyalist forces, made one final attempt to salvage his cause. Broadcasting from a secure bunker on a distant world, he addressed the galaxy with the fury of a fanatic. "Do not let the humans deceive you with their talk of peace and cooperation. Today they fight alongside their allies. Tomorrow they will turn those same weapons against you. Humanity is a virus that must be contained or it will consume everything we have built." His words found some support among the more conservative species, but they also accomplished something he hadn't intended. They revealed the true nature of the conflict to the entire galaxy. This had never been about human aggression or galactic security. It had been about fear. Fear that a young, dynamic species would disrupt the careful balance of power that the established civilizations had maintained for millennia. On Earth, President Martinez received a communication from an unexpected source. The Galactic Council's emergency assembly had been convened for the first time in 2,000 years, bringing together representatives from every major species to address the crisis. The message was simple. The Council wishes to speak with humanity's representatives regarding the cessation of hostilities and the establishment of new galactic accords. Martinez looked at her cabinet, seeing the mixture of hope and suspicion on their faces. "What do you think? Is this genuine or another trap?" Admiral Chen spoke first. "They're calling for a ceasefire from a position of weakness. Half the galaxy is in open revolt against the old Council structure. They need us more than we need them now. But," General Morrison added, "we shouldn't forget that this entire war started because they couldn't accept our existence as equals. That fundamental problem hasn't changed." President Martinez made her decision. "We'll attend their assembly, but on our terms. The meeting takes place in neutral space with our allies present, and we bring our own security. If they want to talk peace, they'll do it as equals, not as judges passing sentence on humanity." As preparations began for what would become known as the Titan Accords, fighting continued throughout the galaxy. The Stability Coalition's remnants had devolved into independent warlord fleets, striking at human settlements and their allies wherever they could. But something fundamental had changed in the galaxy's power structure. The old order, based on careful control and static hierarchies, was crumbling. In its place, something new was emerging. An alliance based on choice rather than tradition, cooperation rather than dominance. Humanity had tried for peace and been forced into war. But in fighting for their survival, they had inadvertently sparked something far greater, a revolution that would reshape galactic civilization itself. The question now was whether the galaxy's established powers would accept this new reality. or whether the war would continue until either humanity or the old order was completely destroyed. In the depths of space, ancient ships stirred to life as species that hadn't been seen for millennia began to take an interest in the conflict. The humans had awakened something that had been sleeping for far too long, the idea that civilization could be something more than just organized stagnation. The galaxy would never be the same. 5 years after the Titan Accords were signed, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood once again before a galactic assembly, but this time the chamber was aboard Harmony Station, humanity's gift to the new Federation, a massive space habitat that served as the galaxy's new capital. The station itself embodied the Federation's principles. Built by teams from 40 different species, it incorporated architectural styles, environmental systems, and technologies that no single civilization could have created alone. Gardens from a dozen worlds grew beside each other, their alien botanies creating beauty that transcended any single species' aesthetic sense. The 5th Annual Federation Assembly will now come to order, Sarah announced, her voice carrying to representatives from 127 member species, nearly double the original council membership. The new structure had attracted civilizations that had never before participated in galactic governance. President Martinez, now serving her 2nd term as Earth's Federation representative, watched from the human delegation with pride and concern in equal measure. The Federation had achieved remarkable successes, but new challenges emerged with each passing year. The agenda reflected both triumphs and troubles. Trade between member species had increased by 400%. Scientific collaboration had led to breakthrough technologies, and the galaxy's first truly universal laws had eliminated slavery and genocide from civilized space. But success had brought new problems. Younger species, inspired by humanity's example, were demanding rapid admission to the Federation. Some established members worried about losing influence as more voices joined the chorus. And on the rim worlds, whispers of human dominance grew louder despite all evidence to the contrary. The first speaker was Admiral Brightfather, now serving as the Federation's security coordinator. His colorful plumage had grayed over the years, but his voice remained strong. Security report. Piracy has decreased by 78% in member space. Joint patrols continue to prove effective. However, we face new challenges from the Outer Reach Confederacy, which views our expansion as a threat to their independence. The Outer Reach represented the galaxy's fringe civilizations, species too proud, too violent, or too xenophobic to join the Federation. They had formed their own loose alliance based on mutual hatred of federal tyranny. Captain Rodriguez, now Admiral Rodriguez, and head of the Federation's Exploration Division, presented his report next. We have established peaceful first contact with 17 new species this year. 14 have expressed interest in Federation membership. However, 3 have explicitly rejected our overtures, citing fear of human cultural dominance. Sarah felt the familiar weight of responsibility. Even humanity's attempts to help were sometimes seen as threats by species conditioned to expect conquest rather than cooperation. The ethereal prime speaker, still serving as the Assembly's spiritual guide, addressed the concern directly. The fear of human influence is not entirely unfounded. Your species' rapid adaptation and innovation naturally leads to your ideas spreading throughout Federation space. The question is whether this represents cultural imperialism or natural evolution. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now director of the Federation Science Council, stood to respond. The accusation assumes human ideas are forcing out others. Our research shows the opposite. Member species are adapting human innovations to fit their own cultural contexts, creating hybrid approaches that often surpass our original concepts. She activated the chamber's holographic display, showing examples from across Federation space. The Thurans took human military tactics and combined them with their natural aerial advantages to create three-dimensional combat strategies we never imagined. The Luxari incorporated our engineering principles with their crystalline technology to build computers that think in ways we're still struggling to understand. The debate that followed touched on the heart of the Federation's greatest challenge. How could they maintain unity while preserving diversity? How could they grow without becoming the very kind of hegemonic empire they had replaced? It was the newest member species, the Valdari Collective, who provided an unexpected perspective. Their representative, a being whose species communicated through controlled electromagnetic pulses, had only recently learned to use vocal translation systems. "We observe with fresh perspective," the Valdari spokesperson said haltingly. "Other species fear human dominance, but humans fear human dominance also. This fear drives your continuous self-examination, your willingness to change systems that do not work. Perhaps this is your greatest strength. Not power, but doubt about power." The observation sparked something in the assembly. For hours, representatives shared their own perspectives on humanity's role in the Federation. The Korthek praised their tactical innovation but worried about their restlessness. The Illurians admired their adaptability but questioned their emotional decisions. The Thyrans respected their courage but sometimes feared their intensity. What emerged was a picture more complex than any propaganda could capture. Humanity was influential in the Federation, but not because they dominated it. Their influence came from their willingness to question established systems, to try new approaches, and to accept failure as a learning opportunity rather than a source of shame. The Assembly's most important decision came when they addressed the Outer Reach Confederacy's ultimatum. The fringe civilizations had demanded that the Federation halt all expansion and establish fixed borders, threatening war if their demands were not met. The debate split along familiar lines. Some species advocated for appeasement, arguing that further expansion might indeed represent overreach. Others called for a strong response to discourage future ultimatums. But it was President Martinez who proposed the solution that would define the Federation's character for generations to come. "We respond with openness," she announced. "We invite the Outer Reach Confederacy to send observers to our assembly. Let them see for themselves how we actually operate. Let them witness our debates, our disagreements, our messy democratic process. If they still choose to remain outside our alliance, we respect that choice. But we won't let fear of their disapproval stop us from welcoming species that want to join our community." The vote was close, but the proposal passed. The message sent to the Outer Reach was simple. "Come and see for yourselves. Judge us by our actions, not your fears." The response came within days. To everyone's surprise, 3 Confederacy species agreed to send observers. The largest and most militaristic, the Hegemony of Suns, announced they would send a full diplomatic mission. 6 months later, as Sarah Chen prepared for the mid-year security briefing, she reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. The observation missions had led to unexpected developments. 2 Confederacy species had applied for Federation membership after seeing the Alliance's actual operations. Even the Hegemony of Suns had opened trade negotiations, but perhaps the most significant change was harder to quantify. The galaxy felt different now, more dynamic, more hopeful, more willing to embrace change rather than resist it. Captain Santos, now commanding the Federation's first truly integrated starship, one crewed by officers from 27 different species, reported on their latest mission. They had mediated a dispute between 2 ancient enemies, not through superior firepower but through patient negotiation and creative compromise. "The galaxy is learning to solve problems without violence," Santos concluded her report. "It's not perfect, it's not always successful, but it's happening. That's something we never had before." As the Assembly concluded its business and representatives prepared to return to their home worlds, Sarah found herself standing in the station's observation deck, looking out at the stars. Ships from dozens of species moved through the space lanes, carrying trade goods, diplomatic messages, and cultural exchanges that would have been impossible under the old system. A soft chime announced an incoming message. The hologram that appeared showed Admiral Brightfather, now based on his homeworld but still serving as an elder advisor to the Federation. "Ambassador Chen," he said, his voice warm with affection. "I wanted to thank you for your service to our alliance. Your species taught us that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice and cooperation." Sarah smiled, remembering the frightened young Thyran who had once warned her about council conspiracies. "We learned as much from you, Admiral. We learned that courage comes in many forms, and that standing up for what's right sometimes means standing alone until others join you." As the hologram faded, Sarah realized that humanity had finally achieved what they had always sought. Not dominance over the galaxy, but partnership with it. The road had been longer and bloodier than anyone had imagined, but the destination was worth the journey. The galaxy was still far from perfect. There were still conflicts, still prejudices, Still species that chose isolation over cooperation, but for the first time in galactic history, there was also hope for something better. Humanity had tried for peace, been forced to war, and ultimately found something more valuable than either. They had found their place in a universe where differences were strengths rather than weaknesses, where cooperation was valued over conquest, and where the future belonged to those brave enough to build it together. The stars had never looked brighter. The neutral space station Convergence had been built specifically for the emergency assembly, constructed by teams from 12 different species in just 6 weeks. Floating in the void between major systems, it represented something unprecedented, a place where no single civilization held sway. President Martinez walked through corridors designed to accommodate dozens of different physiologies, her security detail alert but not aggressive. The humans had come to negotiate, but they had also come prepared for treachery. The main assembly chamber was a marvel of engineering, with environmental controls that could maintain dozens of different atmospheric requirements simultaneously. Representatives from 87 species filled the vast space, more than had ever gathered in one location. At the center sat the Emergency Council, composed of the galaxy's 5 eldest species. These beings rarely involved themselves in galactic politics, but the crisis had drawn them from their ancient isolation. The ethereal Prime Speaker, a being so old that its thoughts moved at the speed of geological time, addressed the assembly. "We gather at a moment of transformation. The structures that have maintained galactic peace for 10 millennia have proven inadequate for a changing universe." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many species had never heard an ethereal speak directly about political matters. The conflict began with humanity's desire to join our community. It escalated when certain factions feared that desire represented a threat to existing power structures. "We must now decide whether our civilization will evolve or fragment." The Vorthak representative, Admiral Slag, rose from his position. He was one of the few Stability Coalition leaders who had survived the purges that followed their defeat. "Honored Prime Speaker, humanity has shown itself to be militaristic and aggressive. They possess weapons that violate galactic treaties. How can we trust a species that builds planet-killing devices in secret?" President Martinez stood, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation system. "Admiral Slag, humanity built those weapons because we learned early in our space expansion that the galaxy contains threats that cannot be negotiated with. Pirates, rogue AI systems, and yes, genocidal coalitions that would rather see us extinct than share power." She gestured to the data screens that surrounded the chamber. "Our weapons were defensive measures hidden because we hoped never to use them. Your forces attacked civilian targets, used illegal planet-killer technology, and attempted systematic genocide. Which of us truly threatens galactic peace?" The Luxari representative, Crystal Harmony, chimed with musical tones. "The humans speak truth, but their methods concern us. They fought with a ferocity that suggests barely contained violence. How do we know they will not turn that aggression against former allies?" It was Captain Rodriguez who answered, his weathered face showing the strain of the past months. "Because we've already had that choice, and we chose differently. When Thyran ships came to our aid, we could have demanded compensation or territory. When Allurian forces joined our cause, we could have pressed our advantage to dominate them. Instead, we fought together as equals." Admiral Brightfather of the Thyran fleet stood, his colorful plumage rustling with emotion. "I can speak to human character. When my people's transport was under attack, Captain Rodriguez risked everything to save civilians he had never met. When the war began, human forces shared their advanced technology freely with allies, asking nothing in return. The question," interrupted Ancient Mindkeeper of the Corellian Collective, "is not whether humans can be trusted in war, but whether they can be trusted in peace. Power corrupts all species eventually." Ambassador Chen, recently freed from coalition custody, stepped forward. "Then let's structure the galaxy so that no single species can accumulate that kind of power." The old council system concentrated authority in the hands of the strongest civilizations. What if we created something different? Her words sent shockwaves through the assembly. She was suggesting nothing less than the complete restructuring of galactic civilization. "Explain," the ethereal Prime Speaker requested. "A federation based on cooperation rather than dominance. Each species maintains sovereignty over their own territory, but major decisions affecting the galaxy are made by consensus." No single civilization can impose its will on others. The debate that followed lasted for 18 hours. Species that had been enemies for millennia found themselves agreeing on fundamental principles. Others, locked in their traditional thinking, resisted any change to the established order. The turning point came when the Korthek Elder Supreme, the oldest and most conservative member of their delegation, spoke for the first time. "I have lived for 400 of your standard years," the massive being rumbled. "I have seen empires rise and fall, watched species achieve greatness only to collapse under the weight of their own power. The humans offer something we have not seen in millennia: genuine change." The chamber fell silent. The Korthek had been among humanity's fiercest opponents. "Their proposal frightens me," the Elder Supreme continued, "because it challenges everything we have built. But our current system has led us to the brink of galactic civil war. Perhaps it is time to be afraid of the right things." Over the following days, the framework of what would become the Galactic Federation took shape. It wasn't perfect. No system could satisfy 87 different species entirely. But it offered something the old council never had: hope for genuine equality. The key innovation was humanity's contribution, a system of rotating leadership based on competence rather than tradition. Species would take turns guiding galactic policy based on their expertise in relevant fields. Military matters might be led by warrior cultures, scientific advancement by research-focused civilizations, and diplomatic issues by species with natural talents for negotiation. But even as progress was made in the negotiations, conflicts continued throughout the galaxy. Stability Coalition remnants, led by the fanatical Executor Vale, waged a guerrilla campaign against the emerging Federation. They had retreated to hidden bases in the Galactic Rim, striking at shipping lanes and civilian targets. The new Federation's first test came when Vale's forces attacked a joint human-Thyran research station, killing 200 scientists and support staff. The message was clear: the old order would rather see the galaxy burn than accept change. President Martinez faced her first major decision as humanity's representative to the Federation Council. Military action would validate everything the coalition had said about human aggression, but inaction would embolden other extremist factions. The solution came from an unexpected source. Captain Santos, whose sacrifice run had been aborted during the final battle, proposed something that had never been tried in galactic history: a joint military operation commanded not by a single species, but by a mixed staff of officers from multiple civilizations. "We show them that the Federation isn't just human power disguised as cooperation," Santos explained. "We show them that we've actually learned to work together." The operation to hunt down Vale's remaining forces became a demonstration of the Federation's potential: human tactical innovation combined with Thyran speed, Allurian technical expertise, and Korthek firepower. Species that had been enemies months before worked together with an efficiency that surprised even their own leaders. When they finally cornered Vale's flagship in the Thanatos Nebula, it was Admiral Brightfather who delivered the ultimatum, with Captain Santos standing beside him as equals. "Executor Vale, by the authority of the Galactic Federation, you are ordered to surrender and face trial for crimes against sentient beings." Vale's response was predictable: "I will never surrender to a galaxy ruled by humans and their lackeys. Better to die fighting for the true order." The battle was brief but decisive. Vale's fanatical followers fought to the last ship, refusing all opportunities to surrender. When it ended, the Stability Coalition died with them, leaving the galaxy free to explore its new future. As the Federation fleet returned home, Captain Rodriguez reflected on how much had changed since that fateful day when he had chosen to save Thyran civilians. Humanity had entered the galactic community seeking peace, been forced into war, and emerged having helped create something entirely new. But the real test would come in the years ahead. Could dozens of species with vastly different philosophies and needs actually govern together? Could the galaxy learn to value diversity over uniformity, cooperation over dominance? The answers would determine whether the Galactic Federation became humanity's greatest gift to the stars, or its most tragic failure.